we'll count her here. Councilmember Williams,
Here.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Here.
Mayor Gordo.
Here.
There's a quorum of the council present.
And Vice Mayor Wilson, can I ask you to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Happy to do so. If everyone could please stand. Place your right hand over the heart. Face the flag. Begin. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Rivas just let me know that her microphone was not working, so she'll try and log back in. I see her back in.
I just logged back in. Can you hear me now?
We can. You are
Okay, great. Thanks.
counted for. Okay, there.
So let's get started. And the first matter is a proclamation. If we can bring Ms. Everett and Chair of the Commission on the Status of Women, Belinda Bowens, on. Allie. Ms. Bowens, welcome. And today we are presenting a proclamation for Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month. And the proclamation reads as follows. Sexual assault affects people of every age, race, sex, gender, identity, sexual orientation, religion, national origin, and socioeconomic background. The Commission on the Status of Women is mindful of the fact that sexual assaults remain a serious issue in our society, and the importance of each of us speaking out against it in order to change attitudes that allow sexual assault to persist. National Sexual Awareness Prevention and Awareness Month calls attention to misconceptions and misinformation about sexual assault, and it's important that we rededicate ourselves to creating a society where sexual assault is not tolerated. Survivors are supported, and all persons in our community can live without fear of sexual assault. I am proclaiming the month of April 2022 in Pasadena as Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month, and encourage everyone to wear jeans on April 27 as part of Denim Day, an international effort to communicate that there is no excuse and no invitation to rape. Ms. Bowens or Ms. Everett, would you like to comment?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Gordo, City Council members, city staff, and members of the public. My name is Dr. Belinda Bowens, and I am the Vice Chair on the Commission of the Status of Women for the City of Pasadena. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in support of the proclamation on Denim Day. We are so grateful that the City of Pasadena is dedicated to the education, awareness, and to providing resources to combat victim blaming and educate others about sexual violence and assault. Through your proclamation, you are standing with the international community in protest against destructive attitudes about sexual assault and are passionately proclaiming that there is never an excuse or invitation to rape. Our belief is that everyone deserves to live in a safe environment free of abuse and violence. We would like to quickly recognize some of the city agencies like Peace Over Violence, Glendale Pasadena YWCA, Shepherd's Door, and the Pasadena Police Department to assist and support victims of domestic violence and work to prevent the cycle of domestic violence through education, public awareness, and collaboration with community partners. Thank you again for recognizing Denim Day and all that it represents.
Thank you, Dr. Bowens. Allie, did you have anything to add?
Yes, thank you, Mayor and City Council members, for this opportunity to recognize April as Sexual Assault Prevention and Awareness Month. And thank you especially to the Commission on the Status of Women for their efforts to highlight this important topic, and Vice Chair Bowens for your powerful remarks. Turning it back over to you, Mayor.
Thank you. And please thank your colleagues, Dr. Bowens, for their efforts and their commitment to Pasadena. you both.
Thank you, Mayor. I will.
Next, we will recognize a legacy business in Pasadena. And today, we're pleased to recognize Roma Market. Do we have a representative from Roma Market?
We're locating them and we'll bring them into the meeting. We don't see them. Mayor, it doesn't appear
Okay.
that they're in the meeting. Go.
Well, so let me just recognize this great business. Roma Market was founded in 1946 in the parking lot where the market now stands at the corner of Mountain and Lake Avenue. Owner Rosario Mazzeo, since the age of 10, has been working in the family deli business. In 1960, he expanded the market to add imported Italian deli products so it could resemble his parents' place back in Sicily. Since then, the market has been a staple in Pasadena, attracting out-of-town visitors as a necessary stop. Taking pride in the community, Rosario continues to serve Pasadena residents while never missing a day of work. His dedication to his business for the past 72 years has fostered a loyal community of customers. With affordable prices on quality products that Rosario personally orders from Italy, Roma Market is constantly busy. Rosario has no plans of stopping either his loyalty to the Pasadena community, and his loyalty is something in which he takes great pride. Congratulations to Rosario Mazzeo and Roma Market on 76 years of business and service to our Pasadena community. On behalf of the City Council, we wish you the best for continued success. And I'm going to venture to guess that all of us have been to Roma Market, and I will say if there's any resident of Pasadena or beyond who has not been, you really should go. It truly is one of our great treasures, and you can always expect Rosario to tell you what cheese you need for to bring home. So don't expect to order the cheese that you thought you would. He will tell you what you need for whatever dish you're preparing. So congratulations to Rosario and his family. Ms. Rivas?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to echo everything that you said. I live very close to the market and see Rosario and his team all the time. And yes, he will definitely let you know what's the best sauce to order with everything. And just a great part of our community. And so happy that we're recognizing them. Thank you, Mayor.
We found a Zoom, someone with their name Zoom user. So we'll see if that might be a representative from Rosa Market. They rejected it. Okay, so it appears no one.
Oh, okay. Well, we can certainly invite Rosario and he's free to bring whatever he would like, whatever he thinks we would like, and say hello to us. But Rosario, congratulations on your great success, and thank you for the quality of service that you and your family have provided to Pasadena. You make us proud and hungry.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Hampton.
I just have to say one thing about Roma's Market. I mean, it's been something I've been going to Roma's Market since I was a little kid, and Mr. Rosario has been there every single day. There's no days that he's not there. He helps you either pick out the cheeses or the pasta or even a watermelon, and they have some of the best produce in Pasadena in town. And so I, as a young person, still look up to Mr. Rosario and how dedicated he is to the work that he does for our community. And that dedication is definitely something I think that everybody, if you haven't been to Roma's Market, you should go by and see that dedication because it's definitely inspiring. So I just wanted to say it is amazing that we are recognizing Roma's Market.
I would say that he doesn't help you find, he tells you what you what you will be having.
Absolutely.
And here he is. Can Rosario, can
There he
you?
is, yeah.
If you can unmute your display, we go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you for everything that you do and for the very specific direction given to all of us. And thank you. We love your business.
Mayor, if I may, too, for a second,
Yes.
need a moment.
Mr. Vice Mayor Wilson.
I would just like to congratulate him as somebody, you may not know this, but I'm half Sicilian. So I'm glad to see that Sicilian products are here readily available. And right in March of 2020, you all may recall, that's when COVID hit. I had to cancel my 2-week trip driving around Sicily to see where my mother-in-law's family came from outside of Palermo. So Rosario, I'll have to get some Sicilian products for you to commiserate. But we love having you here in town, and I love visiting you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. With that, congratulations, and we'll see you at the market, Roma Market. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. That brings us now to our agenda, and I'd like to announce that we're going to give people 2 minutes for public comment. We tried the 1.5 minutes, and I did notice that some people are on substantive issues rushing to make their point, and so we'll try the 2 minutes. Again, we're trying to strike a balance between the meetings that treat everyone fairly, are efficient so that the council can get through its agenda, but at the same time, the public can make comments and have that opportunity. And so we're going to try the 2 minutes and ensure that people have that opportunity in a time that's so that we can finish our business in a time that's reasonable to the public who's tuning in. And we'll see how that works. With that, is there a motion on the consent calendar?
And Mayor, before you take a motion, I would note that we have one public comment speaker on item 9, and that the city clerk's office received one letter in support of the staff recommendation for item number 9, and expressing appreciation to Bill Wong and the housing department staff for their work on this item. That comment was posted online, distributed to the council as part of the record for item 9. Otherwise, the remaining balance, there are no public comments for that.
Mayor, I'd like to move the consent calendar with the exception of item 9, which I'd also like to say something about. Thanks.
Okay, so there's a
Second.
motion and a second on everything but item 9, and roll call.
Councilmember Hampton? Was that yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy?
Yeah.
Councilmember Madison is absent. Councilmember Masuda?
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas?
Yes.
Councilmember Williams?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson?
Yes.
And Mayor Gordo?
Yes.
Motion is approved without opposition.
And with relation to item 9, there's a question first from Ms. Williams.
Just a comment. So the Heritage Housing Partners acquisition is in District 2. I know that Bill Wong and Jim Wong have searched high and low for properties to acquire. This is an excellent project, very supportive, and very happy that we are finding creative ways to use the Inclusionary Housing Fund fees, which we increased a couple of years ago. So very good example of that. So just want to commend the staff and PCC on this great project and hope we can find more.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
And this matter came through Finance Committee and was discussed at length, including the need for more of this type of investment and also partnership with PCC in order to assist students there as well. Um, There's one public comment, 2 minutes.
Yes, Anthony Manusos,
Mr. Manusos, welcome.
*6 to unmute, Anthony. There you go.
Hi
You have,
there.
you have
You all
2
hear me?
minutes. Yes, we can. You have 2 minutes and I'll give you a
Wonderful.
30-second ring to let you know that there's 30 seconds remaining. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not going to need anywhere near that amount of time. I just want to say that I totally agree with Councilmember Williams. I want to commend the Housing Department for its excellent work. And I'm just thrilled that Heritage Housing Partners wants to rehabilitate this property for transition age youth. The need is huge, and this is a wonderful project. And I hope you will support it wholeheartedly. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Mr. Manusos.
I would note that Councilmember Madison has just joined the meeting.
Welcome, Mr. Madison. Is there a motion on item 9?
I'll move it.
Okay, it's been moved,
Second.
moved and seconded. Roll call.
To approve the staff recommendation for item 9, Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
Motion is approved without opposition.
Great. That brings us to item 15. Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Item 15 is a public hearing, and we'll turn it over to the city clerk to open the public hearing.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the renewal of the South Lake Avenue Property and Business Improvement District and the proposed levy of assessment. On March 31, 2022, the public hearing notice was published in the Pasadena Journal and the Pasadena Press. The city clerk's office has not received correspondence that's excluding the ballots that have been received by the Economic and Development Department. So there's no correspondence on this item.
Okay. So we'll turn it over to the city manager and Mr. Klug, who's joined us to give a presentation.
I'm going to ask David Klug to open this up. This is the actual voting night for the
Okay.
renewal of the South Lake bid. I know that all the council's been through this on other bids before, but I'm sure that David will remind us of the process.
Yes, hi, good evening. Actually, we have Ruth Martinez here. She will give the report and go through the South Lake renewal. As the city manager said, this is ballot counting night, so we will recess to go back and count the ballots and report back in. But to give some background, Ruth is here to give the additional details.
Great. Ruth, if we need them, yeah. So stand by. So the city council will now receive testimony from all interested persons for or against the renewal of the district, the levy of assessments within such district, and the type or types of improvements and activities to be funded with revenues from the assessment.
Mayor, there appears no one that has submitted a public speaker card for this item.
Would the council like a presentation? We've handled this matter previously. I can't see the numbers. Yeah, we can take the presentation down. Okay, nobody's jumping off the screen, so we'll move on to number 4. I will now entertain a motion to approve staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3 to close the public input portion of the public hearing and to order staff to tabulate the assessment ballots submitted and not withdrawn in support of or in opposition to the proposed assessment. The city council will now recess the public hearing in order for staff to tabulate the ballots received. Is
So
there
we need
such?
yeah, we just
motion?
need a motion in a second.
So moved.
So moved.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Williams and seconded by, was that Mr. Hampton?
So
Okay.
to close the public hearing and approve staff recommendations 1, 2, and 3, Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda. Yes? Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
So the staff will now recess and go back to tabulate the ballots received. City clerk staff will join Mr. Klug and staff for the ballot tabulation, and then they will come back and we will reconvene the public hearing to report out the results.
Okay.
Just a comment, Mayor. I know that it's not, you guys can go ahead and tabulate, but we did receive some comments about the water and power construction project on Del Mar, and since we have staff from Water and Power here, could we get a response to those concerns that were brought up about the water and power project on Del Mar? So those are the comments that were submitted. They were submitted as part of South Lake. I think they're the businesses from South Lake. Just if they could just comment on the letters that we received regarding the ability to access Shoppers Lane and the impact on the businesses and the notification.
So we'll ask when the tabulation vote
Yeah.
comes back for just some brief
Yes.
comments. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, next, item 16. While the ballots are counted, and this is also a public hearing, and I'll turn it over to the city clerk to open the public hearing related to the recommended fiscal year 2023-2027 capital improvement program budget. And this is really the opening of the public process.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This is the time and place for the public hearing on the recommended capital improvement program component of the proposed budget for FY 2023 and 2027 through 2027. On April 4th, 2022, the public hearing notice was published in the Pasadena Journal and the Pasadena Press. 3 letters expressing concerns and/or providing comments related to several projects, the American Rescue Act funds to be used for renovations for fire stations and police department buildings, funds allocated for the Rose Bowl improvements in the proposed 2023 to 2027 CIP budget, requesting additional information related to the One Arroyo projects and lack of funds allocated to the pedestrian improvements for the Central District, and 1 letter in support of 3 streetscape projects for Colorado Boulevard, Lake Avenue, and Mentor Avenue referenced in the CIP FY 23 to 27 budget. Those letters were posted online, distributed to the city council, and are part of the record for this public hearing.
Great, thank you. And again, for those of you who tuned in earlier, the council did meet in a joint meeting with the Finance Committee of the Pasadena City Council in order to begin the budget process, and specifically the capital improvement program budget this afternoon. Are there questions or comments as we begin this process? Okay. Any speakers? Okay. Okay, so no public speakers. Mr. Olmos, maybe you can just give us a brief rundown procedurally of what the public can expect and where they can tune in terms of public.
So good evening, Mayor, Mayor, City Council. Tony Olmos, our Public Works Director. As the mayor previously mentioned, there was a workshop that was conducted this afternoon where the Joint Finance Committee City Council heard from 3 departments. They heard from Public Works. No. Yeah. The 3 departments that presented was Public Works, DOT, and the IT department called Do It. And next week, there's going to be another workshop at 2 p.m. and again with the Joint Finance Committee and City Council. The three departments presenting will be the Rose Bowl Operating Company and the Pasadena Center Operating Company, as well as Pasadena Water and Power. After that, there'll be an item on the agenda for the evening session for City Council to consider adoption of the CIP, and that'll be the next action.
Thank you, Mr. Olmos. And so I will now entertain a motion to continue this public hearing to 5 p.m. May 2nd.
Motion to extend.
So,
Continue. Okay. Motion to continue the public hearing to Monday, May 2nd at 5 p.m. made by Mr. Masuda, seconded by Mr. Hampton. Roll call.
Councilmember Hampton,
yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
Motion is approved without opposition.
Next, item 17, and this is an item involving military equipment, the military equipment use policy, and directing the city attorney to prepare an ordinance to adopt the policy per California Assembly Bill 481. Madam City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to speak briefly. We do have a detailed presentation that will provide the council and the public with more information about the state law that is guiding our military equipment policy and where we go from here. This is really just the beginning of the conversation about the city council adopting such a policy. We do have a draft policy that has been posted. It was posted on April 21st online on the police department's website. And that policy will be up for review for comments for 30 days. And the public may actually just get on the link that's available on that website and submit their comments directly. We really talked about what was the best way to bring this policy to the council and the best way to engage the public, because the state law makes provisions for such actions, but doesn't tell you exactly how you're supposed to do it. But we thought bringing it to the council so the public was made aware that we are seeking comments would be the best way to show transparency and that we really are seeking comments. We also will be presenting to the Police Oversight Commission at their May 5th meeting, and so the public may engage at that as well. And all the comments that we receive through the website this evening or through the Oversight Commission meeting will be reviewed, and we may make changes in the policy or changes in some of the attachments to the policy based on those comments. So what you're seeing is a draft policy this evening may have changes, but we will explain what we changed and why we changed it when we come back on May 23rd. There was also going to be, according to the state law, there will be an annual review of this policy. So this is the first time you will see it, but you will be seeing it in the future on several occasions. Our policy and our equipment is probably a little different than many of the cities that surround us because Pasadena has such large events. We prepare for large crowds and we prepare for the safety of the visitors that come. Sometimes hundreds of thousands of people in our small city, and thinking about how we protect them and how we protect.
Madam City Manager, your voice goes in and out. It's not clear through and through when you turn your head.
Yeah, I'm speaking to the audience and not to the mic, so I will just look at the mic. Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. I'm acting as if we're all in the same room. Pasadena has some unique events, is what I was saying. That means that the things that we need to have as part of our police equipment are different than surrounding cities. And we'll be available tonight and again on the 23rd to talk about why some things are in our inventory that we've acquired because of the events that we have here in Pasadena, with the hopes that we actually never need to deploy them. In some situations, we do have other agencies who bring this equipment with them. We have Homeland Security and FBI and other people that join us for some of our events, but that's not true for all of our events. For UCL games, for our music festivals, we do expect to have crowds of people in town, and we do not have that supplemented with outside enforcement and outside equipment available. So it is necessary for us to keep some of this equipment in our inventory, just so that we're sure that we continue to be a safe place for our own population and for the visitors that come here. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Interim Chief Moody, who's going to speak about some of the times that we have used the equipment and how it's been deployed, and then we'll talk to the policy directly.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, City Manager, City Staff. AB 481 comes on the heels of Ferguson and George Floyd, where via the media, we saw how some law enforcement agencies aggressively use military-style equipment to deal with demonstrators. The military-style equipment that PPD has is equipment that we have had for many, many years. This equipment is only utilized for the safety and protection of the community. A few of these items are less lethal items. A few of these are less lethal items that are deployed for patrol officers to utilize for de-escalation purposes in the field when needed, such as the 40mm rubber munitions and pepper ball rounds. For instance, over the weekend, this last weekend, officers from the Criminal Investigations Unit located a suspect who was wanted for an assault with a deadly weapon sitting inside a van on a city street. Several attempts were made to have him step out of the van, but he refused. The front passenger window was breached with a 40mm round, and pepper balls were introduced into the cab of the van. The suspect did not immediately exit the van. The Bearcat was brought to the scene as a large presence, and commands were once again given to the suspect to exit the van. A .22 caliber rifle was recovered from within the van. So without the less than lethal tools, there could have been a different outcome. But the vast majority of the military style equipment, of our military style equipment, is stored under lock and key and only accessible to our trained SWAT team members if needed during large events, as the city manager said, such as the Rose Parade, UCLA games, and for critical incidents, such as a barricaded suspect who's inside a residence or a business. PPD policy dictates that the use of kinetic energy projectiles and chemical agents, which is the bulk of our military style equipment, should not be used for crowd control, excuse me, unless it is to defend against threat to life or serious bodily injury, or to bring an objectively dangerous and unlawful situation safely and effectively under control. Use of this equipment for crowd control requires a summary be prepared and published on the department website within 60 days of each incident. During the recent protests that occurred here in the city of Pasadena, the Pasadena Police Department demonstrated that we utilize measured approaches and adaptable strategies and tactics when creating, thank you, operation plans, with the understanding that we would only take action to defend against serious bodily injury or to bring a dangerous and unlawful situation safely and effectively under control. Throughout the time when the protests were occurring in Pasadena, there was never a need for us to deploy any of this military style equipment. Ultimately, it is the industry standard to have the necessary equipment on hand, and not, it is the industry standards to have the necessary equipment on hand and not have to use it as opposed to not having it, and a critical incident occurs, that we are not prepared to protect our community. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lieutenant Bill Grisafi, who has a PowerPoint presentation pertaining to Assembly Bill 481 and our listed equipment.
Lieutenant, welcome.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity to be here. Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, as the Chief said and the City Manager said, I'm here to introduce the new Assembly Bill 481. It's a military equipment bill. Purpose of this meeting is to present it so that we can begin the approval process for the continued use of these pieces of equipment, as well as start the process for the writing of the ordinance that will come, as the City Manager mentioned, in 30 days. We'll begin that process. Unfortunately, the bill is called the Military Equipment Bill, and it's really misleading because the Military Equipment Bill implies that the military is supplying police agencies with equipment such as tanks, nerve gas, hand grenades, heavy duty weaponry, those types of items. And when in fact, the only equipment that we get from the military are 3 stripped down Vietnam War era helicopters that we use to assist our patrol officers. That's all that we have from the military. Pasadena doesn't use these other types, the tanks, the hand grenades. We don't use those types of equipment. It's just the helicopters that we have. Most of the equipment that is listed in AB 481 are the industry standard law enforcement that we purchase to address critical incidents in the event that we have a critical incident. Officers, the fact that we have them, officers are able to train with it, prepare to use them in the event that we have any type of critical incident, such as a terrorist attack at a Rose Bowl event or events during our New Year's celebrations. Any type of hostage situation, like we saw back in 2008 on El Molino Avenue, when a father held his 10-year-old son hostage for several hours over a custody dispute before he engaged in a shootout with officers. Or active shooter incidents, similar to what occurred on Summit Avenue back in 2014, when a suspect from inside his house shot and killed 3 innocent people on the sidewalk, one of them being a Good Samaritan who attempted to go and save the life of one of the dying victims. Or even more recently, as November's Sunny Slope shooting, where the ex-military member who was likely suffering from some type of PTSD went on a shooting rampage. All of these incidents, we would have applied some of this equipment to these incidents. Ultimately, the identified equipment that we're going to talk about today is used for public safety. It's not to show military might. That's not our intentions. And I ask that as I go through this presentation that you remember these points. Here's the overview of the presentation. I'll first go over the Assembly Bill 481, talk about the equipment definition, what our implementation is, or the process to enact the ordinance and our policy. I talk about our department's equipment list. I'll go through the list of all the items that we have that are included in 481, and then go through recommendations and questions and answers. One important component of this bill is that we look to the community for oversight and input. As mentioned by the city manager, on the 21st of April, we posted online our policy, our draft policy, as well as our inventory list for review by community members, and allowed them to provide comment. So it is up there, and encourage people to go to the website, the Pasadena Police Department's website, to provide their comment. So first of all, AB 481 went into effect on January 1 of 2020. It includes both existing equipment that we have, anything that's on the list, and as I told you earlier, I'll go through the list in its entirety. But it includes existing equipment that we have and any newly purchased equipment. That's what it involves, that's what it includes, and we have to get approval before we can, 1, purchase any new equipment in the future, and 2, continue to use the existing equipment. It ensures that there are safeguards, including transparency, oversight, and accountability measures for the use of this equipment. Summary of the bill is that law enforcement agencies must obtain the governing body, which is the city council, approval for funding, acquisition, and the use of the equipment before we can continue to use it. There's an adoption of the military equipment use policy by ordinance. That's a mandate by the code. There is also an annual reporting of military type of equipment and renew of ordinance. Let me clarify that the annual reporting is we are to report every year to city council exactly what we've used, how we use it, and if there's any type of complaints in regards to the use of equipment. Prior to that, it includes a 30-day review or presentation to community members that we must do before we bring it to council so we can get some of their input. We also must post on the agency's website any proposed or final military equipment use policy, which we post our policies as well anyways, for as long as military equipment, the military equipment is available for use. And we must begin this governing body approval process by May 1st, and that's the purpose of today's presentation. The policy approval by governing body is required within 180 days of the law enforcement agency. Let me back that up. We have 180 days from the time that we present this to you to get approval for the use of the equipment. If within 180 days we don't get approval, then we must cease using it. Military equipment definitions. As I mentioned earlier, the title of the bill 481 is military equipment, which is a bit misleading because really what it should say is military type equipment. It's not necessarily equipment that we just get from the military, although that is included. And like I said, we just have our helicopters. It does not include just the military or the equipment that we receive from the military. The majority of the equipment is considered non-lethal items, and they're used for special uses. We don't just use them every day. They're like the chief said, they're locked up and they're brought out for certain situations. The equipment that we use or that we have is considered to be best practices and tools of the trade to help us do our job, to help us get resolution to violent incidents. And it is industry standard for law enforcement nationwide. Really, the equipment is designed to ensure public safety, meaning it allows us to de-escalate situations. If there's a violent situation and we're able to use some of this equipment to be able to take a person into custody safely without anybody getting hurt, that's our ultimate goal. And it minimizes the use of lethal force. Most of our equipment is purchased it's purchased or seized. It's not that we're getting it from the military. And the items that are on this list are rarely used by the police department. Very often, or very rarely do we take them out. As mentioned by the chief, for the demonstrations that we had 2 years ago, we took them out, but we didn't actually ever have to use them, which is a good thing. Let's talk quickly about military equipment and public safety. So as we all know, that city of Pasadena is an international destination for large-scale events. We have the Rose Parade, Rose Bowls, UCLA Games, business centers, universities, and several other attractions. Specifically, the New Year's events that we have. These are ideal situations or ideal events for terrorist attacks. So much so that the Department of Homeland Security consistently rates this special event as a SEER level 1. What that means is they look at it, they assess it, and say, you know what, this is such a significant event. All the Rose Parade and Rose Bowl events, there's such a significant event that has national or international importance that we know that we are going to need to provide the city of Pasadena several resources. This is similar to the same rating that a Super Bowl will get. The potential use of the equipment that we potentially could use it for are active shooters, like the North Hollywood event that occurred back in 1997, the San Bernardino terrorist attack that occurred back in December of 2015, or the Orlando nightclub shooting that occurred in June of 2016. School attacks are a big concern for all, and we need to have the equipment available to us in the event something like that happens. A lot of these items that are on this equipment list will help us resolve those situations. Vehicle tax, like they've had in Nice, France, where the suspect drove a 19-ton cargo truck into people who were celebrating Bastille Day, that occurred back in 2016, is a real threat for us, especially at New Year's events. Or hostage rescue or barricaded suspect situations. I mentioned earlier the situation where the father held his son hostage for several hours. That whole event lasted 11 hours, and it was an 11-hour standoff between the police department and the suspect who was heavily armed. And or violent demonstrations would be another application for it. Fortunately, since 2020 or during 2020's demonstrations, we had over 60 of them. And fortunately, they will all remain peaceful. However, had they become violent, we would have had to deploy some of the equipment. As far as our implementation of our policy will be number 711. It includes the equipment inventory as well as how and when we can use it, which is consistent with Assembly Bill 481. It provides, the law mandates these items be found in the policy and in the description or the inventory list. A description of the equipment, a quantity, capabilities, purchase costs, its purpose, who the authorized users are, and the fiscal impact. We did post this on the Pasadena Police Department website April 21st, which is required by the code 30 days in advance to allow for public review and comment. And we also provided information to local media outlets and our social media posts with the intent of engaging the public. And then on the May's meeting of the Community Police Oversight Committee, there's going to be a presentation. I'll do the same presentation to them to elicit feedback. With that, I get into the actual list of inventory that the Pasadena Police Department has. And understand that 481 lists 16 different categories. Of the 16 categories, Pasadena only uses 9 of those different types.
I'm sorry, Bill. I just want to interject to say that let's just talk about ones that there are questions on, because I think this entire list went out to the community and to council. So if council has any questions on any particular item, then we can answer those questions.
The list is pretty exhaustive in the staff report, clear.
Yeah.
So why don't you finish your presentation, Lieutenant, and then we'll turn to the council. And we do have one public comment card.
Okay, I think probably the most questioned item that we've got so far is the 50 caliber firearm or rifle. It's a precision rifle. This is a rifle that we use specifically for the intent of disabling vehicles that are charging or that are threatening to harm individuals, such as the event that occurred in France back in 2016, where the individual ran the 9-ton cargo truck into the crowd. What this does is it has been proven effective to disable vehicles from continuing to move forward. It essentially takes out the engine block. This is not meant to take out, to use as a sniper rifle to assault the driver of the vehicle. It's specifically designed for our application to take out and disable the truck itself. So we have that is found in category 8, and then the ammunition for it is found in category 9.
Thank you. Does that complete your presentation?
It does, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments from members of the council before we turn to public comment? We do have one public comment card. Councilmember Rivas?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start by thanking the department for highlighting in the staff report that per our charter, the council typically doesn't have a direct role in approving its policies. And so because this is a pretty unique opportunity for the council to weigh in, and also because we now have a Community Police Oversight Commission, I think the best way to move forward may be to allow the public and the commission to weigh in first over the next 30 days, I believe it is. And then we could take up this matter and have a more robust discussion informed by their feedback. So my preference would be that we not direct the city attorney to take any action tonight. So that's my thoughts as to process, but I'm happy to go into the substance of it as well. I have a few comments that I've already shared with the city manager, and I'll briefly go over here. The first is that, so the policy itself states that it's providing guidelines for the approval, acquisition, and reporting requirements of items defined as military equipment. And I think that the draft policy is pretty clear on the existing inventory and the annual reporting requirements moving forward. But I do think it's much less clear on how military equipment will be approved and acquired. After reading through the policy, I'm not 100% clear on what those processes are and what the approval levels are, et cetera. For example, there's a paragraph on approval that's about approval of the policy, not approval of how the military equipment is used. And so I'm hoping, as we get more feedback from the public and the commission, we can work on improving the draft in that regard. As to a specific item for the 50 cal rifle, thank you for bringing that up. It is a weapon of war used by militaries, and it's designed to be used against both materiel and personnel, so against structures and buildings and vehicles as well as individuals. And as the report mentions, and we heard today, that the intent of the department is not to use it against individuals, it's to use it against moving vehicles and to stop vehicles. And I think it'd be ideally then that the policy should say that it will not be used against individuals, to clarify that, because the way it's worded, it kind of leaves it open. It suggests that it's primarily used for vehicles, but doesn't affirmatively state it won't be used against individuals. So thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I do think that, Lieutenant Krisafi's point and the chief's point that, we can't predict all circumstances, all situations. If we know anything about, if we've learned anything about these occurrences, whether they're in California, in San Bernardino, or anywhere in the world and our country, it's that, we can't be as prepared as we'd like to be, or sufficiently prepared as we'd like to be, but we certainly have to take every precaution and be as prepared as we can be in advance of a situation. Scurrying to prepare ourselves in the midst of one of these horrible incidents simply isn't sufficient. And so I appreciate the presentation because it highlights that we, one, do have equipment. The public should be aware of it. That is equipment we hope not to use. But the public should also be aware that we're doing everything we can to be prepared to protect the public in the event of an occurrence. And, the history in Pasadena, very near history, shows that the police department has used the highest degree of discretion when having to use any of this equipment. In fact, when we had involving the George Floyd matter, lots of activity in the city, and I was one of the people who complimented, and all of us complimented the police department in how effective the department's use of equipment and policies and mere presence reflected the better side of respecting the First Amendment while at the same time being ready to respond in the event that it was needed. And I'll remind us that in Old Pasadena, a response was needed, not because people were exercising their First Amendment right, but because people came to our city in a caravan intending to commit criminal activity. That was a very small group of people. 99.9% of the people who participated did so very responsibly, and the department's handling of and the discretion used in that situation, and the department's handling of that situation was commendable. And so I, for one, I don't have a concern related to how we've handled this equipment. And I certainly want us to be prepared to respond to any situation that may present itself in Pasadena, because we are a very high profile city that hosts very high profile events. And so I'm prepared to support or give direction to the city attorney to begin the crafting, I guess, of an ordinance and continue the opportunity for public input and then come back within the timeline that is outlined in state law. It would be a terrible mistake to allow the timeline to pass and not take action, and then we don't have equipment that's available, that should be available to the city and the police department. So at the right time, I'm prepared to support that direction. Mr. Kennedy, followed by Ms. Williams, or Ms. Williams is first. Ms. Williams, then followed by Mr. Kennedy. Apologies.
Thank you for your comments, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation and the disclosure of all of the equipment. I think it's good for our community to see that. Maybe a balance between Councilmember Rivas' request. How long is the policy up? When did it go up on the PD's website?
Last Thursday, the 21st.
Okay, so the 21st, 30 days from the 21st is May 21st, so that falls within the 30 days of the city attorney's office. But if the city attorney has the time to gather the input from the Police Oversight Commission and the input received by the PD, whatever the time frame is that you can come back with an ordinance, if that's within 30 days, then I would support that motion as well, Mayor.
Or we were looking at, I think, the schedule for council meetings, but we can certainly make it within 60 days and come back as soon as we can.
Okay, I just want to
Which
make
could
sure that
be
the
30
input
days.
is included.
Yes, we certainly, the policy might be revised
Yeah.
from the input, but we also would bring back the input. Maybe not every single one, but categories, the way that
Exactly.
the clerk reports to you on what we've heard in different, some people are saying the same thing. We tell you how many people. We were intending to come back May 23rd. That was really looking at June. We won't have full council meetings in June, and we do have the housing element and the budget coming forward. But the 180 days puts us out beyond that. If you don't want to have this on the May 23rd agenda, we would probably look to July 11th.
Well, I would support it on the May 23rd agenda, and I think that's enough time to incorporate the various comments. So
Okay.
that's a motion. I'll second it.
And Mayor, if I may, that also gives us an opportunity to do this presentation for the Police Oversight Commission.
Great.
And
get
we're
feedback.
proposing May 5th for May 5th.
Yeah.
Go to the Oversight Commission as an information item and feedback to the council.
Correct.
And next is Mr. Kennedy.
I want to thank Interim Police Chief Cheryl Moody for her presentation, as well as Lieutenant Grisapi for his presentation. It is, in my view, a thorough presentation, and there's a limited amount of military-style equipment that is in the coffers of the Pasadena Police Department. Having said that, in a critical incident, our police officers need maximum flexibility to arrest a violent situation. And if some of you may remember, in West Hollywood, I think it was a Bank of America incident where there were two individuals who were
North Hollywood.
two individuals who had a number of bulletproof vests on and were firing crazily at officers in that community who had responded multiple jurisdictions. And regular rounds would not take them out. And so really what caused the demise of at least one of those active shooters was a slug from a shotgun, not the spray, but a slug from a shotgun to their skull. That was the only way to bring that particular active shooter down. So I agree with my colleague that in a normal situation, you would not want to use any of this type of equipment in a domestic situation on our streets in Pasadena. But again, as the presentation shared with us, we are a unique city that hosts world-class events. And because of that, we are open to the possibility of world-class stupidity. So I support with the necessary constrictions and restrictions
That is a good line.
of this type of equipment being onto lock and key for our qualified police personnel to use in the very rarest of circumstances as the presentation shared. So thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you, my colleagues and mayor, for your comments at this point. Thank you.
Thank you. We have one public comment card and then we'll entertain a motion.
Before I call the public speaker, who is Yadi, I wanted to report out one letter advocating for this was received on this item, advocating for the city council to fully comply with AB 481's provisions for transparency and community input. That letter was posted online, distributed to the council, and is made part of the record. So we would then call Yadi to provide 2 minutes. Yadi, you have 2 minutes for public comment. I will ring a bell when you have 30 seconds left. Go ahead.
Hi. Over 70 civil rights and service organizations throughout California sent a coalition letter to elected officials in cities and counties across the state urging city councils like you to implement AB 481. The law addresses the use of tank-like armored vehicles, assault rifles, rubber bullets, drones, and other equipment used by local law enforcement agencies. Dozens of youth policy ordinances so far are incomplete and fall short of the transparency needed for civilian decisions about the large range of military equipment used by law enforcement agencies. Lexipol's boilerplate policy template used by the Pasadena PD does not adequately meet the requirements outlined in AB 481. A couple things to address. Pasadena PD is one of the very few outliers who has chosen to classify assault rifles as standard issue and has omitted them from the policy. When is the use of military equipment authorized? When is it not authorized? What are the clearly defined procedures for documenting the use of this military equipment? Who will the deployments be reported to and how will the records be kept? Is this military equipment for anti-terrorism or anti-protest or what? Having large events doesn't preclude you from having a comprehensive policy around the use of this equipment or give an excuse to have this equipment at all. Several studies conclude that police departments that acquire military-grade equipment are more likely to use violence. One study shows the correlation between law enforcement acquisition of more military equipment, leading to more residents who are more likely to die in encounters with police and law enforcement. I reject any proposed policy that doesn't fully comply with AB 481 and its intent for transparency and accountability. Anything short of that is an infringement against our civil liberties. Thank you.
Thank you. There appears to be no other public comment cards on this matter.
For the record, in terms of the speaker's comments, I think this council is moving in the direction for full compliance with the state law. And I am supportive only of that. And I believe that is the spirit of the motion made by the mayor.
Well, I haven't made a motion. I think Ms. Williams is,
Yeah, I'd be
We can-
happy to move the staff's recommendation.
Do you want me to speak to the?
yeah, why don't we address the speaker's comment?
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. Madam City Manager?
Thank you very much for the comments that we received this evening, and certainly it is the intent of the city to be in full compliance. But I've written down notes from what we heard this evening, and we'll work very closely with the police department and the city attorney's office to make sure that if there is something else that's required by 481 that we have not yet included, that over the next 30 days we would do so.
Yadi's very thorough, and so I would like some answers to some of the issues that she's raised when this matter comes back. Ms. Rivas?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to get clarification. I guess my main concern is that when this comes back, that we do have a full discussion informed by all the feedback we've had. I would hate for it to just, come up for a first reading and that's it. So as long as that is envisioned, I'm happy to support the motion.
We'd be glad to bring this back as a written report. In addition, under the city manager, part of the agenda, in addition to a first reading, which you then can make a decision if the first reading is in compliance with what you wanted, or if you want additional changes. So yes, we'll make sure it's listed twice on the agenda, so that it's not just treated as an ordinance, a more typical ordinance where the policy decisions have already been made.
And
That sounds great. Yeah, just so we can have that discussion. Thank you.
and my understanding is some of the, for example, the what is it, the for the lack of a better term, what'd you call it, the tear gas?
Pepper balls.
Yeah, the pepper ball.
Yeah, it's in our use of force policy. And
Yeah.
it spells out exactly when to use it, how to use it,
Right.
and that only those trained on it can use it.
Right, and so those policies and procedures are in place, many of them dictated by outside agencies.
Right, and we can incorporate.
Yeah, we can incorporate that. So I think it's important
Yes.
to have full disclosure. Okay, with that, there's a motion made by Ms. Williams and a second. Roll call?
I'm so sorry, Mayor. Can you repeat the motion? Is the motion is?
It's the
is
staff
here from the
recommendation.
Oversight Committee.
Yeah, it's a staff recommendation with one addition, that the matter go to the Oversight Committee as an information item for their feedback.
Perfect. I just wanted to make sure that that was in the record for the motion. So,
yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I'm sure you're about to ask me my name.
What's your name?
I mean, Councilmember Hampton? Yes. That's
Okay.
right. I'm good.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
Motion is approved without opposition.
And thank you, Chief and Lieutenants. Senator Mercado, good to see you.
Mayor, did you want to reconvene the public hearing? They,
Yes.
I believe, are prepared to
We have, the count is in. And why don't we have a reporting on the ballot count?
So we're going to return to item 15. Following the tabulation, I'll read this out. Honorable Mayor and City Council, pursuant to procedures for the completion, return, and tabulation of the assessment ballots, city staff and the city consultant have tabulated the ballots in support of or in opposition to the proposed assessment. A total of 90 ballots were properly returned, with ballots weighted according to the proportional financial obligation of each affected property. It has been determined that the ballots representing $320,848.78 in financial obligation were returned in support of the proposed assessment, and ballots representing $32,000.41 in financial obligation were returned in opposition to the proposed assessment. Therefore, 90.93% of the ballots were received as weighted or cast in support of the proposed assessment, and therefore there is not a majority protest against the proposed assessment. And so, Mayor, it would be appropriate for a motion to approve staff recommendations 4, 5, and 6 as stated.
I'd be happy to make that, Mayor.
Moved by Mr. Wilson,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Williams.
Congrats to South Lake P-Bid too, by the way.
Yeah, congratulations to everyone. Good work.
Roll call on approved staff recommendations 4, 5, and 6 as stated in the agenda. Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yeah.
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
The motion is approved unanimously.
Jeff, you're on a roll, and every appearance you make, not much controversy. Yeah, you got to bring us some controversy. Okay.
The questions for Del Margo.
Yeah.
I just wanted to respond, Mr. Mayor, if I may, to questions from Councilmember Williams. We did receive notice. A notice did come out from Pasadena Water and Power on notice of construction. I do apologize. It's not terribly well worded. It does talk about starting work in the first week of May and going through August, but it is going in phases. It's just stretches during this period. Our contractor, Perry Thomas, will be working with the shop owners throughout Maidens Lane area. There's two projects. One is upgrades for specific businesses that need higher power for their businesses. And while we're at it, we are doing the groundwork for an eventual EV charging station, which will take place in collaboration with Tesla. And that will be coming forward to the council in the next few weeks, and that'll be moving forward. And that work will be done in the late July, August timeframe.
Thank you. Follow-up questions?
So why can't we Ford drivers use the Tesla charging stations?
There will be both types of charging stations, some generic as well as Teslas, and Tesla will not be paying for all of it, just a portion of it, and that's going to be where the superchargers for Tesla will be going. But we also are adding chargers for other vehicles as well.
Where is the charging station going?
It's going to be in the parking lot over at the Maidens Lane area, over at that shopping area, and we have specifics as to between which blocks.
No, that raises a question in my mind about legislative action. I mean, at some point, manufacturers should be given that municipalities are now installing the infrastructure and counties and state, there should be some legislative action to not have different charging needs based on brand or model, or there's got to be some, I don't know if normalization is the right word, but uniformity. And
yeah, there should be a standard charging.
Yeah, and
I
so
agree 100%.
So we'll leave that in your hands, and maybe to change that, or bring to the legislative, to our yeah, you can tweet that, put that on Twitter.
We can put it on Twitter.
State law does require that, but maybe it would be nice to have a presentation. I did read the PWP annual report. I have tabs with questions. But it would be nice to see at MSC, if you agree, Vice Mayor, just to get an update on the various public charging efforts, because I saw there's some going into Victory Park, and so it's not clear where they're going, and maybe it's just a discussion of the projects and then the policy behind it, because we should make sure that those charging stations are available to all people.
That may be, so did you say state law already calls for that, but maybe it's federal issue, and maybe we should talk to our congressional representatives.
Well, maybe if we could get an update on what the state,
Yeah.
because state law says that you have to be able to use a credit card at any charging station. In
No,
public
but
area,
I'm referring to the actual charging.
What,
But so
yeah,
that's
the actual
accessible.
port.
Yeah, it's the accessibility
Yeah.
bill
Yeah.
that the state has
I'm
passed. It just
gonna-
hasn't gone into effect yet.
Could I suggest, in this, we have had reports on the charging, rollouts to MSC, and maybe time to have another one. Jeff, if you wouldn't mind putting that on our agenda review, we're happy to take a whack at it, at MSC.
Yeah,
Cool.
We will get it scheduled.
good, great. Thank you. That brings us to item 18. This is the first reading of an uncodified ordinance. Mr. Clerk?
Yes, Mayor, we have one public comment on this item. I also.
I just realized I'm recusing myself. And so, in the abundance of caution, I'm going to recuse myself as I did previously when this matter came forward. I do own rental property within the city of Pasadena, and so I'm going to recuse myself from participation in the reading of the ordinance that is contained in item 18. And I'll leave the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor. I will jump in here momentarily, and I turn it back over to you, Mark.
Thank you. The city clerk's office received 4 letters in support of the proposed ordinance sunsetting the moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent by tenants impacted by COVID-19, 2 letters in opposition to the proposed ordinance, advocating for the city council to extend the moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent by tenants impacted by COVID-19. Those letters were posted online, distributed to the city council, and are part of the record for this item. I will do the first reading, and then we can, Vice Mayor, if it's good with you, there's a question, and then we could go to the public comment. So this is an this is an uncodified ordinance of the city of Pasadena amending and sunsetting ordinance number 7363, a moratorium on evictions for non-payment of rent by tenants impacted by COVID-19. And it looks like Councilmember Masuda has his hand up.
Thank you, Mark. I'm prepared to introduce it. Thank you.
Introduced by Councilmember Masuda. So, Vice Mayor, should I call the public speaker? It's
Do we just have one speaker? Mark?
yes, just one at this point.
Yep, please go ahead.
Allison Henry. And as Allison comes in, I would just say out loud, Allison, you have 2 minutes. I will ring a bell when you have 30 seconds remaining in your 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Jomsky. Good evening, Council and City Manager. My name is Allison Henry. I'm a tenant in District 3. I am in strong opposition to the sunsetting of this eviction moratorium at the end of June. I'm a little disappointed that there wasn't more review of the data provided by the Housing Rights Center, and actually as well as the data that is usually collected by community services. They do help tenants with a lot of issues with, tenant issues that aren't necessarily handled by the Housing Rights Center. But in reading the submitted paperwork, I was disappointed to see that the stated reason for sunsetting the ordinance doesn't really seem like a reason. There's really no reason given. It's this ordinance is needed to sunset the city's moratorium on eviction for non-payment. And it just seems like there's very little plans or thought about the reality of tenants who are still struggling to pay rent. All the data borne out by the staff report from April 11th, whether it's the 1,400 plus Pasadena households that have received housing as key funds, which will still be protected, but there are a lot of folks that didn't apply, that couldn't apply. And June is right around the corner. And I'm just very disappointed that there just wasn't more review of the data. And when looking at things like preventing homelessness, we've got over 300 homeless folks identified in the city of Pasadena. And I'm just at a loss to understand why, looking at the data you did, there was a feeling of go ahead to I feel add to that number. That said, I would just like the council to extend this moratorium actually to the end of the year. It would give the city time to work with tenants and landlords to prevent homelessness. And if there are small mom and pop landlords, the city has a working relationship with many of them. And it would seem to me that working with them first rather than sunsetting this entire moratorium would be more productive. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Vice Mayor, that completes public comment on this item.
Thank you, Mark. The ordinance has been offered. Are we ready for a roll call?
Yes.
Vice Mayor. if
Oh,
you
I'm
don't
sorry.
mind,
I didn't see your hand up. Go ahead, Sarah.
Well, my hand wasn't up. I apologize. I just jumped in. I would like for the city manager and the housing department to look at, in Ms. Henry's letter to us today, she mentioned about the city council looking for funds for those that did not qualify or did not apply for whatever reason for any rental assistance, that we look at what we can do to continue to keep our residents in their homes. So I would like that to come back to the council if there are any funds or any dollars that we can leverage or find to put to the side for rent assistance, as they as some of these people have to pay back 6 months worth of rent, which could be a hardship, but it's better 6 months than 12 months. So I would like for that to come back to us at some point, city manager, to see if there is any funds that we can find.
Vice Mayor and Councilmember Hampton, Bill Wong is here. We could speak right now to the funds that have been set aside and what will happen between now and June 30th, or we would be glad to prepare that in a separate report if you'd like us to do it that way. So I look to the Vice Mayor for his counsel.
I would like both. I would like both if it's okay. I mean, if it's a short presentation that the council could hear as well as the people that are listening, that would be great. And then any write-up that you could send out to the council as well as the community would also would be great, at least from one city council member. So.
Yeah, Bill, if you could go ahead and provide a quick response, and city manager, if you could include it in your newsletter update, so it's available in writing as well.
Sure. Thank you, Vice Mayor and council members. So in our agenda report on this item from the previous week, we mentioned that there is, I believe the number is about $3.3 or $3.4 million that we already have set aside for a combination of programs, including temporary rental assistance and back rent payment and additional legal services. But we can put those again into the city manager newsletter.
Thank you, Bill.
Should I move on to roll call?
Unless there are any other questions, please, roll call, Mark.
So it was introduced by Councilmember Masuda to do first reading. Councilmember Hampton.
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilmember Madison.
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda.
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas.
No.
Councilmember Williams.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson.
Yes.
The motion is approved, 6 in favor. Oh, sorry, Mayor Gordo is absent. Sorry about that. So 6 in favor, 1 against, 1 absent. So the ordinance for first reading has been conducted. Recused. Absent due to recusal, Mayor.
Welcome back. Gavels, back over to you.
Thank you.
So you returned at 6:02.
Okay, so that brings us to item 19. This is the second reading of an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Kennedy. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Item 19, one letter was received by the city clerk's office expressing concerns with noise pollution related to leaf blowers, including electric leaf blowers, and provided comments on the matter. That letter was distributed to the city council, posted online, and is part of the record for this ordinance. This was an ordinance introduced by Councilmember Kennedy. This is an ordinance of the city of Pasadena, amending chapter 9.37 in parens leaf blowing machines of Title 9 and in parens public peace, morals, and welfare of the Pasadena Municipal Code related to the prohibition of gas-powered leaf blowing machines. To adopt the ordinance, Councilmember Hampton,
Yes.
Councilmember Kennedy,
Yes?
Councilmember Madison,
Yes.
Councilmember Masuda,
Yes.
Councilmember Rivas,
Yes.
Councilmember Williams,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Wilson,
Yes.
Mayor Gordo.
Yes.
The ordinance is adopted without opposition.
Okay, well, actually, no, we still have public comment for matters not on the agenda. And again, I'd like to announce that speakers will have 2 minutes to provide public comment for matters not on the agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. The first speaker is Kat Ross, followed by Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham. We'll bring in Ms. Ross. Ms. Ross, you will have 2 minutes. I will ring a bell when you have 30 seconds remaining.
Ms.
Go
Ross,
ahead.
welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm really hopeful that the council will revisit instructing on policy related to pretextual stops. There's a lot of data on the fact that pretextual stops increases deaths in our community. I mean, we have 2 really great examples just in Pasadena in the last 10 years. But there isn't actually a lot of data supporting the idea that it improves our community or does something useful, except for racial profiling. Maybe you find that useful. It would be really great if we could see the council make some progress towards police accountability. Maybe you're not interested in firing the officers who killed Anthony Mclean, who was pulled over on a traffic stop, but maybe you are more willing to create policy changes for the future so that this doesn't happen later on. I'm looking forward to the changes that you're interested in making. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham, followed by Michael Williams. But before we bring in Alan Shea.
Yeah, before we bring Mr. Shea, Michelle, the issue of pretextual stops, is that maybe you can provide a memo to, or just a brief paragraph in your weekly letter on the definition of a pretextual stop and how I get what the speaker was making reference to, but I'd like to better understand the issue.
Perhaps what we can do is, you're referring to maybe in the city manager's weekly
Yeah.
memo, we can give some language that
Yeah,
they
just-
can include.
Well, I'd just like to better understand the issue.
Okay.
I understand what she's driving at, but I think given some background would be helpful.
Okay.
For the council to receive some background. What it is, what a pretextual stop is, any laws governing policies, procedures. Okay.
Mayor,
Mr.
you know,
Hampton?
it's funny that it's great that you asked this question. I thought that might be a good informational item for a public safety meeting. I was going to request that at the end of the meeting. But if you think an update from the city manager, city attorney is the best course forward first, and then if we need to have a presentation at the public safety meeting, I support that too.
I think just having some background information might be a good place to start. Okay.
Alan Shea, followed by Olden Denham, followed by Michael Williams. Mr. Shea, *6 to unmute your phone.
Mr. Shea, welcome.
There you go. You have 2 minutes. I will give you a 30-second ring when when you have 30 seconds remaining. Go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Victor Gordo and council members. My call today is really in hopes that we will have a very clear standard that will be used in the administrative investigation for Anthony Mclean, so that you can make sure that the community is aware. Because if you have not reviewed the DA's report, it is unbelievable. I'm going to try and keep it clean and nice, because in some instances it's saying that the gun was actually found at 8:05, but yet there were 3 other officers who walked past the area. One at 8 o'clock, he walked past it, he didn't see it. One at 8:02, he had a cell phone. It's even posted in the report where he's showing him on a cell phone at 8 o'clock. Okay. And then you have another officer. And then finally, this one out of the blue at 8:05 comes across the gun. Those things really tear in the heart of the trust and credibility of what has transpired here. And if we're ever going to get back on track with trusting our elected officials, our police officers who sworn to serve, and our leaders as a whole, we've got to make sure the community is truly aware of the standard that's being employed for a clear result. Because that report is so contradiction. It contradicts everything. In fact, I'm shocked that they didn't I'm shocked that they even went with that. And last but not least, the number 8 witness, who was the alleged person who saw Anthony allegedly throw the gun, stated that she didn't see him throw the gun.
Mr.
And
Shea,
that's what was told to her by the officer. So that's where we are with that. Thank you.
thank you. Olden Denham, followed by Michael Williams, followed by Aileen Bagarian.
Mr. Denham, welcome.
Star 6 to unmute, sir. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Yes, hello, City Council. I'm going to forego the hellos and all the gratuities and all that, but I am grateful for being here. I'm going to try not to get mad, but I get angry because I've seen the footage. I've seen and examined every inch of the footage by timeline. I also had a preliminary look at this report, which Alan just spoke on. It is ridiculous. It contradicts itself in many times, in many places, and the report never mentions the fact that within the first 15 seconds of the videos from the first officer's cam, you can see that Anthony McClain has a cell phone in his left hand. You can see the officer that comes to his door and shines a light into the car. He sees the cell phone in Anthony's left hand as well. He also, and at no time was there a threatening move at all. He opened the door and politely let Anthony McClain out. Anthony McClain immediately, upon getting out, started to run. Within 10 seconds, this young kid had got shot in the back. And you can see every ounce of every bit of that footage, and nowhere was there a threatening move, and nowhere was he made an effort to throw something on the west side of the street. In fact, you see right after he got shot, or right before he got shot, he kicked his shoes off, which means he's putting in another gear. He's trying to get away, not to do anything aggressive. He's trying to get away. And right after he was shot, on the camera from the center, you see him drop his cell phone. Now, where this came in is the first lie. How do you back a lie with another lie? And all I've seen since then, this whole report thing is excuses, lies on top of lies, trying to cover the original lie. The original lie was an excuse, a reason to shoot Anthony McClain. There was no reason. Thank you for your time. I know you've heard all this before, but we're going to keep saying it until you get it.
Thank you, sir. Michael Williams, followed by Aileen Bulgarian, followed by Janae. Michael, go ahead. 2 minutes.
It shouldn't take a report to tell you that what the actions of the officers took were out of policy and egregious. They should have been already fired for the multiple policy violations and rights violations that they committed. And only did they commit stop and frisk because they had never, since the time Anthony McLean was killed, has never given a valid reason for why they searched Anthony McLean in the first place. They've never given a sincere reason, except for the fact that he was black and in a car, for why they were searching for a gun. Not only have they not given a legitimate reason for that, but also in the own report that supposedly cleared the officers, it shows that obviously Hugh McGuendon lied about seeing a gun in his hand because he couldn't have seen a gun, because by the time Officer Hugh McGuendon shot, and when he saw Anthony McLean's hand out, Anthony McLean had supposedly or allegedly already thrown the gun across the street, according to the report from the DA that supposedly clears him. Your officers are lying on the job. They're lying. They have not proven that Anthony McLean had a gun, and they violated rights and policies and how they proceed. They should have been fired. They shouldn't have taken this long. They should have been fired. They should have been off of the force and removed from our streets. You talk about all day long about public safety and all these different scenarios where people can be hurt. This is an actual thing that happened, and happened 3 times. Happened 3 times in the last 10 years. You're talking about terrorist attacks. And yet you're doing nothing about this. I don't know how you all are not ashamed of yourselves. I don't know how you all can sit up here and be proud of the things that you're doing.
Mr. Williams,
You
your
have
time
been
has
under arrest.
expired.
Fire the officers that killed Anthony McLean.
Thank you. Aileen Bulgarian, followed by Janae, followed by Karina K, followed by Julia R, who's not checked in the meeting. Aileen?
Ms. Bulgarian, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Eileen Bulgarian, and I am a 25-year business owner in Pasadena, Coco's Mediterranean Cafe on Shoppers Lane. And this morning we received a Pasadena Water and Power notice of construction, informing us of construction that would just start next Monday, only 1 week's notice, and continue until August with no prior notice, no public hearing. And the South Lake Business Association Board was never informed of this either. The notice says Shoppers Lane will be closed to through traffic, and as such, you are restricting foot traffic to a small business as myself that is trying to heal from the pandemic. The only entrance to my business is on Shoppers Lane. We do not have an entrance off of Lake Avenue, and I don't know if this was overlooked, but it needs to be considered as it will cost me a tremendous loss of business. There's also current construction on Del Mar Avenue, which further inhibits customer access and causes even more detours. And the notice states that deliveries have to occur on Lake Avenue. So I don't see any traffic plans that allow for designated loading and unloading zone on Lake Avenue, with no other designated parking allowed in that spot for all of the deliveries that need to take place. And there's no mention if there's going to be any disruptions to electricity. And this all needs to be considered and given to all of the business owners, and especially myself. I'm a licensed civil engineer in the state of California, and I need to see the traffic plans, construction schedules that are going to affect my business greatly.
Ms. Bulgarian, I'm sorry, go ahead and finish your statement.
I think she might be done.
Ms.
Ms. Bulgarian, I know that you've been in touch with the city clerk's office. We would just like to get your contact information so the city manager could have someone contact you back.
So if you could call the city clerk's office.
626-744-4124 and leave your name and contact information, we will get you in touch with the city manager's office.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next speaker.
Janae, followed by Karina K, followed by Julia R. Janae, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
I want to start off by saying that
the fact that you guys can just overlook and rush to give the manager's office this kind of information because of a business, but like have very little concern on making sure that city manager has handled the case of Anthony McLean shows a lot about your character. But I want to, as you have heard from multiple people calling about Anthony McLean, I actually want to put the humanity back into alignment. We have every right to have a paranoia fear when we are addressed or stopped by police. We have an absolutely God-given right to be fearful for our lives. And every single time you guys do nothing, you infuriate that fear even more to the Black people in your community. Every single time you ignore the fact that officers can kill us with impunity, and you sit there and you reward them by keeping them on the job, you have absolutely told the Black people in your community that you have every right to fear and that you must do what you need to survive. So that means running as soon as you get stopped, then you need to run because, hey, you only have a 50-50 chance of making it out. Every single time, you guys ignore our pleas, you ignore our cries, you ignore the mothers every single day. Our humanity means nothing to you. Nothing to you. You have people on your council who have literally said, Anthony McLean has been me, and you sit there and do nothing on a daily, on a fucking daily. I cannot understand how you people could sit here and say that you're a part of the community and you do this on a daily. You care nothing about us. Nothing. Justice for Anthony McLean, you should have been fired those officers. They're not safe, clearly not safe for anyone. And they shoot with no questions asked. Fire the officers. Justice for Anthony McLean.
Thank you. Karina K, followed by Julia R.
Okay, welcome.
Karina, you have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Go ahead.
Hi, my name's Karina. I'm a Pasadena resident and member of Black Lives Matter Los Angeles. And I just pulled this up on Google. The definition of pretext is a reason given in justification of a course of action that is not the real reason. So if you watch the body cam videos of the murder of Anthony McLean, say his name, Anthony McLean, you'll see that the officers busted a U-turn simply because this vehicle was black and had tinted windows. And was missing a front license plate. I think I've been missing a front license plate at some point in my adult life, and maybe all of you too. And I don't think that warranted my being pulled over, and certainly not the passengers in my vehicle being killed. It's really concerning. How is it that the district attorney completed their investigation before the Pasadena city government did? How is it that the district attorney over the entire county of Los Angeles completed this investigation into Anthony McLean before you all did? What was the purpose of deciding, of needing to wait before, determining if what happened in those videos was wrong? What was the need to then, decide if the DA or if the higher level was going to, bring criminal charges? Because here we are, and instead you have brought the entire Pasadena community, thrown them through the rigmarole. The family of Anthony McLean has, suffered from more trauma, more grief. There were members of this community traumatized by the deaths that you carry out over and over and over. And here you all sit here complicit and looking really just silly and foolish and hateful and anti-Black, racist, and white supremacist. It's really disgusting and detestable. And I want to actually also pose the question of what fear is more justified? The fear of hypothetical attacks on the city, hypothetical, that haven't happened, may not happen ever, just because you have all this pompous and this hubris to think that Pasadena is such a great city. Not for Black folks. That's an idea. That's not real. The hypothetical or the actual real danger that the Pasadena Police Department poses to Black people in this city. The real danger, the real lives that are stolen.
Karina, your time is
Black
expired.
Lives Matter, justice for Anthony McLean, and fire those officers.
Thank you. Julia R. *6 to unmute, Julia. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. You have 2 minutes. Go ahead.
Hi. Yes, I just want to echo what my family, Karina, said before there. I agree wholeheartedly. Justice for Anthony McLean. I continue to be just kind of in awe of how little we put ourselves outside of our immediate understanding of our world. You cannot understand how out of policy or in policy. It doesn't matter because it is a real threat. The cops who killed Anthony Mclean are still on the street, and there is a real effort and like a real energy against all of this. You continue to say all of these things, but there's no action about the actual, real fear that your community members have here. We don't see any action to address the very real danger that has happened, and to sort of have any sort of even realm of justice, even in the realm of justice, and moving forward from this horrible grief and real trauma that has happened in your community. I want you to just picture for a moment what it was like to be in someone else's shoes, and to understand that maybe you don't feel comfortable around people because they kill everyone who looks like you. Okay, just think for a moment and put yourself into these shoes. I don't think you're understanding what your constituents are saying. They're coming to you vulnerable and upset and scared, right? Safety. They feel their safety is at danger here, right? What protect and serve what then, right? And this is an honor that you have to serve these people, right? I'm a teacher. I serve my students. That is an honor of mine. You have to understand that you have to listen and consider that you might not know what it is like to be here. You have your
Julia,
is coming in every single day. Every single day.
your time has expired.
Trying to email you about this. Do something. Listen. Action is the only thing that matters.
Thank you. Mayor and City Council, that completes public comment on matters not on the agenda.
Okay, Mr. Hampton, is your hand up or?
Yes, Mayor, it is.
Go ahead.
I have two questions. One about the notifications from PWP to the business owners on Shopper Lane, and just business owners and residents in general, to the city manager's office. Is there a way that the PWP or any public works agency would give ample amount of notice for any construction that is happening within a residential area or even or a business district? Could you guys look into the, maybe making it a 3 weeks and then a follow-up week of?
We do have policies about notifying people, especially if they're going to be driveways or any interruptions. Sometimes it's done directly by our staff, and sometimes it is part of the contractor's responsibility. Clearly, something has not gone right with Shoppers Lane. And we open projects every week, and we rarely hear that people don't know about them. But it does happen, and clearly something on Shoppers Lane did not get carried out promptly or properly. I don't know the answer to that since I'm just hearing about it tonight. But we will get the information tomorrow. I will certainly follow up with the I don't have her name right here, the woman that spoke, Aline, directly, but we'll also follow up with the South Lake bid board of directors and get people out there to have a better understanding. This is not a closure of the entire Shoppers Lane for the period that was notified of starting this week and going through August. This is periodic closures, and we will make sure that we don't cut off any businesses and that people are still able to access parking. But I'm glad to provide more information to the council too. But yes, we have very strict rules about notification, and something has slipped up in this case.
Okay, thank you, City Manager Kurtz. And then my last and final comment for the night, because the meeting is about to adjourn. Today I had the great opportunity of going to John Muir High School and speaking at Career Day as the keynote speaker for Career Day, as a alumni of PUSD, alumni of John Muir High School. It was an amazing opportunity to engage with our youth. the beautiful thing about engaging with youth is they're just like brutally honest, right? I mean, they say things that you're just like, oh wow, wasn't expecting that to be, on the top of your mind. But I'm glad that you have mentioned it to me while I am right here in front of you. And the reason I bring this up is because the public comments, as it relates to Anthony McLean, were brought up today from some of the students that I engage with. And there is a legitimate fear, and I just want to let my colleagues know, because I understand we're busy, we don't always have an opportunity to talk to our young people and hear them, right? Because it's important to hear them because we represent them as well, even though they can't vote for us. But at the end of the day, we want to make it a better place for them so that one day they are making decisions that are good for us. Because I see those young people as the next mayor, city council member, governor, doctors, etc. And there is a legitimate fear from the young people that I spoke to of the police. And when I was at Jamier High School, I actually did not have that. And a lot of my friends who I've engaged with recently have told me the same thing. They didn't have that. They didn't feel that way. And it was that our police department was more community oriented. As I mentioned before, and I've mentioned multiple times before, that, as a kid, when I would play on the street, playing football, whatnot, and getting out, police officers would walk our block and they would come and they would play with us, right? I mean, they'd throw the ball, they'd say, I'm gonna be all-time quarterback. And it was amazing because we built a relationship, and those relationships helped, understand, how they should respond to us, but also vice versa, how we should respond to them because they're human beings at the end of the day. I mention this because there is a legitimate fear, and when young people, you hear like, oh, why did they comply? Why did they run? There's a fear for these young people that they could get shot. They could end up dying if they don't respond right, or at least if they're not perceived to be responding right. So as the city manager and her team and the police department are making their decisions, policy-wise, there's so many reasons why, we should be holding people accountable when it comes to our policies. But there's an overarching theme, right? And that overarching theme is, how do our young people feel? How does the community, how does the whole community feel? Not 80%, not 90%, but how does the community as a whole feel when pulled over or asked questions by the police department? Do they fear? Does their heart race when they get pulled over? Or every time I get pulled over, I'll be honest with you, and it happens often. Most of the time, I don't end up getting tickets, etc. But of course, there is that. You just don't know what's going to happen, and especially when I look at myself in the mirror and see the people that have been shot and killed by the police, or even by some people in their own community. They kind of, I look at myself in the mirror and I see, wow, that kind of looks like me, or that not kind of looks like me, that does look like me. And I'm sorry for the monologue, everybody, but I just want to, just say that, we have to, as a department, city manager, and even as policymakers, we have to understand how our policies intertwine in how we are perceived as a community as a whole. So, city manager, mayor, and colleagues, I appreciate you guys giving me the time just to tell you briefly about my experience with Career Day today. But the public speakers that have spoken today about accountability and policies around that are correct. And there is an opportunity for us to do better than those that served on this council before us. And there's an opportunity for our young people to have an appreciation and respect and love for the city that they live in, the way I do. So God bless each and every one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hampton. With that, that completes our public agenda, and the council will now recess into closed session to address the closed session matters on the agenda.
The city council will convene in the virtual meeting room to discuss closed session items A and B on today's agenda.